what everyone's eyebrows started raising was especially when Nicola didn't wear Victoria Beckham's dress, her wedding dress. She was supposed to design the dress. That's exactly what Brooklyn has been saying. And
This was supposed to be the ultimate dream life. Football royalty, billionaire bloodlines, and a wedding so over the top it froze the internet mid-scroll. The Beckham legacy collided with the Peltz dynasty, and the result looked untouchable. Designer wardrobes, private jets, flawless lighting, and those perfectly curated Instagram moments felt less like real life and more like a luxury film set. Fans soaked it in, believing every pixel of that polished fantasy.
The fact that he did not turn up to his father's own 50th birthday, it was war.
But behind the camera flashes and red carpet smiles, something messy was simmering. The shine began to dull. Those picture-perfect couple vibes started to wobble. What first surfaced as quiet whispers about wedding tension quickly snowballed into a social circle scandal stretching from London to Los Angeles. Secrets leaked, friend groups cooled, alliances shifted. The fairy tale glow started looking less like romance and more like a reality show implosion. Then things escalated. Brooklyn Beckham didn't stay quiet this time. He pushed back, publicly and unmistakably. This wasn't a vague comment or a misquoted line. He lifted the curtain and let the world peek behind the glossy facade. Suddenly, the carefully polished family image cracked and the tension spilled into public view. Brooklyn and Nicola stood firm, signaling they were done performing for cameras or maintaining a scripted piece. This wasn't about aesthetics anymore. It was about fractures under the spotlight, and no matter how tangled the situation gets, people can't look away. Fans are scrambling to understand how a fairy tale pairing backed by two powerful families unraveled so quickly. The wealth, the influence, the fame, none of it seems able to mask what's happening behind those flawless photos. Online, people are connecting dots, asking tougher questions, and watching the fallout spread in real time. Some are even whispering, could this drama leave a lasting mark on the Beckham name? Brooklyn has lived in the spotlight since birth. Fame wasn't a career choice. It was the atmosphere he grew up breathing. As the eldest son of David and Victoria Beckham, privacy was never part of the deal. Cameras tracked his every step. Expectations stacked high. Mistakes didn't fade. They made headlines. Now, he appears determined to flip the narrative and speak for himself in a way few expected. He's pulling back the glitter to reveal that what looked like a golden life may have felt more like a gilded cage. Brooklyn hinted that the same empire that opened every door also confined him. Every decision scrutinized, every move analyzed, every misstep magnified. It wasn't freedom, it was life inside a glass box of fame and pressure. For years, insiders murmured about tension between Brooklyn, Nicola Peltz, and the Beckham family. Most dismissed it as normal family friction. Now, those whispers seem deeper than anyone admitted. This is the kind of conflict powerful families typically smooth, over behind closed gates, but this time, it spilled into the open. The image of unity fractured, and the rumors didn't fade. They detonated into a public feud. Everything shifted the moment Brooklyn released his multi-part statement, a shockwave that rippled through fans, media outlets, and everyone orbiting the Beckham universe. When he finally spoke, he held nothing back. He suggested his parents tried to steer every step of his life, even his marriage, and that the Beckham brand sometimes took priority over his happiness. That's not mild tension, that's a direct challenge to the family legacy. Then came the line that set the internet on fire, the moment that made millions pause mid-scroll and ask, did he really say that? Brooklyn made one thing clear, he's done pretending. No staged smiles, no carefully polished family harmony, no PR-approved unity. And with that, the Golden Dynasty narrative flipped overnight, leaving the world wondering how the picture-perfect story unraveled so fast. To understand how things unraveled, you have to rewind to April 2022, the wedding that looked like a dream but may have marked the first real fracture. Brooklyn and Nicola's Palm Beach ceremony was nothing short of extravagant. More than 500 guests filled the Peltz family's oceanfront estate, a setting so lavish it rivaled royal celebrations. A-list names, couture gowns, and glittering decor created the illusion of perfection. For a brief moment, it resembled a real-life fairy tale lifted straight from a blockbuster film. But behind the polished smiles and flawless photography, tension was already simmering. Beneath the million-dollar sparkle and designer elegance, cracks had begun forming, quietly, invisibly, long before anyone realized what was brewing. According to Brooklyn, the first major fallout started over something that should have been simple: the wedding dress. On the surface, it sounds harmless, yet that decision quietly ignited the first spark of conflict. Victoria Beckham had reportedly offered to design Nicola's wedding gown, a gesture that appeared warm and sentimental, a mother's creative contribution to her son's big day. But close to the ceremony, that plan changed. Nicola ultimately walked down the aisle wearing a custom Valentino gown instead. What looked like a fashion choice quickly took on deeper meaning. Brooklyn later suggested that the shift stirred strong emotions during what should have been the happiest day of their lives. The gown became symbolic, not of style, but of a divide forming beneath the celebration. What appeared flawless to the public may have been, behind the scenes, a moment when tensions began to crystallize. That one day, filled with flashbulbs, diamonds, and designer spectacle, may have planted the seed of a rift still unfolding today. Brooklyn admitted it was one of the hardest periods they faced, saying it felt as though the world was against them. Then came the line that struck fans deeply. At times, it felt like they were against each other. For many, that confession transformed the wedding from a fairy tale into something far more complicated. The Beckham side never issued a formal response, but tabloids and social media soon filled the vacuum with competing narratives. Headlines multiplied. Commentators speculated. What began as wedding coverage evolved into an ongoing family saga. This was no longer a small misunderstanding. It was beginning to look like a family power struggle unfolding in public view. Then came the moment people still dissect today: the wedding dance. According to Brooklyn, the first dance was meant to be Nicola's fairy tale moment, a memory bathed in soft light, surrounded by love and celebration. Instead, it became the scene that set the internet ablaze. As music filled the air and guests watched expectantly, the atmosphere shifted. Singer Mark Anthony, hired to perform at the reception, took the microphone. What happened next remains one of the most debated moments of the night. Reports claim he announced, "Let's welcome the most beautiful woman in the room, Victoria." The room froze. Cheers softened into confusion. Cameras continued flashing. Suddenly, attention pivoted away from the bride. What may have been intended as a compliment instead altered the emotional tone of the moment. Guests exchanged uncertain glances. A hush spread across the room. Observers still debate whether it was an innocent remark, a misjudged attempt at praise, or simply an awkward moment amplified by heightened emotions. Brooklyn later described the atmosphere as eerily still, as if time paused. Nicola, stunned, reportedly stepped away in tears while guests looked on in disbelief. Murmurs spread. The celebratory mood fractured. What should have been a tender memory became one of the most talked about moments in celebrity wedding lore. And according to Brooklyn, the tension deepened when Victoria joined him on the dance floor soon after. A moment that, depending on perspective, appeared either maternal and spontaneous or emotionally complicated within the charged atmosphere. From the outside, it was just a wedding reception. Inside that ballroom, it may have been the instant the fairy tale began to unravel. Guests weren't sure how to react, whether to clap, smile politely, or pretend nothing unusual had happened. The atmosphere shifted almost instantly from celebration to uneasy tension. Conversations quieted. Laughter faded. Even those seated far from the dance floor sensed something had changed. What moments earlier felt joyful now carried an unmistakable discomfort. Brooklyn later described the moment as deeply humiliating, something he says still makes him wince when he thinks about it. He also shared a detail that intensified public reaction when it surfaced. During the dance, someone allegedly encouraged him to place his hands on his mother's hips while Nicola had stepped away in tears. Whether intended as guidance for the moment or misunderstood in the chaos, the image struck many fans as emotionally charged given the circumstances. Witnesses described an atmosphere thick with nervous whispers, sideways glances, and forced smiles as guests tried to maintain normalcy. The ballroom's glittering glamour gave way to a strained stillness few present would forget. People seemed hesitant to move, as if unsure how to respond without making the moment more uncomfortable. For Brooklyn, the dance became a turning point. What should have been one of the most romantic memories of his life transformed into something he associates with discomfort and emotional fracture. He later suggested the tension of that night left lingering scars that did not fade quickly. In an effort to reclaim a moment they felt had been overshadowed, Brooklyn and Nicola later renewed their vows privately, without press cameras or spectacle, choosing intimacy over pageantry. For them, it was a chance to create a memory untouched by the pressure and scrutiny that surrounded their wedding day. Brooklyn has said the dance symbolized something larger than awkward timing or misunderstanding. It marked the moment he felt boundaries blur and control slip beyond his grasp. After that night, he suggested, relations between the Beckham and Peltz families never felt quite the same. What began as celebration evolved into something more complex, touching on identity, autonomy, and the desire to live life beyond inherited expectations. For the son of one of football's most famous families, stepping outside a carefully curated image was not simple. According to Brooklyn, the wedding tensions were only the beginning, a crack in the polished narrative that had long defined the Beckham brand. Then came another revelation that left longtime followers stunned. In a later statement, Brooklyn claimed that before the wedding, there had been pressure for him to relinquish certain rights connected to his own name, a claim that, if accurate, would have significant implications for business ventures, branding, and future legacy planning. The suggestion that control could extend to that level sparked widespread debate about autonomy and identity within powerful family brands. Whether interpreted as business protection, misunderstanding, or something more personal, the idea resonated deeply with observers. This was no longer framed as simple family friction. It touched on independence and who ultimately shapes a legacy tied to a globally recognized name. Not long after, fans noticed a subtle but meaningful change. Brooklyn began using the name Brooklyn Peltz Beckham. At first glance, it appeared modern and affectionate. Over time, many saw it as symbolic, an assertion of partnership and individuality rather than a departure from family roots. The shift spoke quietly but powerfully. A statement of building something new rather than standing solely in inherited shadow. Brooklyn also opened up about life inside a globally recognized household, suggesting it differed from the glossy narrative often portrayed publicly. According to him, expectations were high. Public appearances, social media presence, and alignment with the family brand carried weight. Participation in high-profile events and maintaining the image mattered, and stepping outside those expectations could sometimes create distance. Whether interpreted as pressure, structure, or the reality of maintaining a global brand, his comments revealed the complexity behind life in one of the world's most visible families. What once appeared effortless and unified now looked far more layered, a story not just about fame, but about identity, independence, and the challenge of defining one's own path within a legacy watched by millions. Brooklyn has described a life that glittered from the outside, but, in his view, came with invisible expectations. It felt, he suggested, like affection and approval were tied to maintaining a certain public image. When those unspoken expectations weren't met, he sometimes felt distanced within his own family. Over time, that realization reshaped how he understood fame, loyalty, and the cost of growing up inside a global brand. Since sharing his perspective publicly, Brooklyn and Nicola haven't appeared shaken. If anything, recent photos show them walking through Malibu hand in hand, relaxed and smiling, seemingly more at ease than in the past. Sources close to the couple say the atmosphere around them feels lighter, less tension, less pressure, and a sense that they are finally living on their own terms. After years of maintaining appearances and navigating intense scrutiny, They are reportedly relieved that their truth is no longer hidden behind polished images. Without the need to project perfection, they can focus on building a life that feels authentic rather than performative. At just 26, Brooklyn appears determined to establish an identity separate from the expectations tied to his famous surname. Instead of seeking approval or fitting into a predefined role, he has been focusing on pursuits that genuinely interest him. His ventures into the food world, including his online cooking series, his hot sauce brand, and lifestyle projects such as Cloud 23, reflect a shift toward carving out a personal path rather than extending the Beckham legacy. The message many observers see is simple. He's no longer trying to be the golden son of a global brand. He's writing his own story. Brooklyn has said he tried repeatedly to keep tensions private in order to protect his family and prevent personal pain from becoming public spectacle. But according to him, things changed when he began noticing what he perceived as ongoing media narratives emerging from the family side. At that point, he felt silence was no longer possible. He has framed speaking out not as an attempt to escalate conflict, but as an effort to clarify his perspective. That's why his statement resonated so strongly when he said he did not seek reconciliation at this time. To many listeners, the tone sounded measured rather than impulsive, a decision that felt deliberate rather than reactive. For any parent, such distance is painful, especially under global scrutiny. David Beckham has responded with notable restraint. When asked about the situation, he offered a calm reflection, saying that children should be allowed to make mistakes and need space to grow. His words were balanced and composed, widely interpreted as an effort to ease tensions rather than inflame them. Some fans praised his response as dignified and mature. Others felt it sounded formal, perhaps too measured for such a deeply personal conflict. To critics, it suggested the Beckham brand was still being protected even in a moment of emotional strain. Victoria Beckham, meanwhile, has remained silent publicly. She has not posted statements, offered quotes, or hinted at her feelings. That silence has fueled speculation online. Some view it as a respectful decision to protect family dignity and avoid intensifying the situation. Others interpret the quiet as emotionally guarded. Whether seen as strategy, restraint, or private grief, the silence itself has become part of the story. A reminder that behind global fame and polished images, this remains a family navigating an intensely personal rupture under the world's spotlight. Others see something far more emotional beneath the polished silence, not strategy, not image management, heartbreak. Some insiders suggest Victoria is struggling with the possibility that she may not play a meaningful role in Brooklyn and Nicola's future family life. For any parent, the thought of missing milestones, grandchildren, holidays, quiet family moments, is the kind of pain that cuts deeper than public criticism ever could. Behind the fame, the billion-dollar brand, and decades of carefully built image, the fear of losing a piece of her son's future may be what hurts most. And that private grief, unseen and unspoken, could be the real story beneath the headlines and gossip cycles. So what happens next? Right now, no one truly knows. Even public relations experts and crisis strategists are divided. Some believe time will soften the edges, that the intensity will fade as attention shifts elsewhere. Emotions cool. Distance creates perspective. In that view, silence and patience might succeed where words cannot, allowing space for reconciliation when the noise finally quiets. Others are less hopeful. They argue the damage runs deeper than a temporary rift, that wounds exposed on a global stage don't simply close with time. Once accusations and private grievances become public conversation, there is no rewind button. No private dinner can erase what millions have already seen, shared, and debated online. This is no longer just a family disagreement. It is a public fracture between cultural icons, unfolding under relentless scrutiny. When private pain becomes viral content, it cannot be neatly packed away again. That is the harsh reality of fame. Long ago, this story stopped being about a wedding dress or a moment of social awkwardness. What's unfolding now speaks to something much larger, the cost of living a life where personal conflict becomes public entertainment and the world feels invited to take sides. For now, Brooklyn and Nicola appear to have made their position clear without dramatic declarations. They are maintaining distance, prioritizing privacy, and protecting their space more deliberately than ever. Fewer red carpets, fewer public appearances, a noticeable shift toward controlling how and when they are seen. That quiet confidence communicates more than any interview could. Meanwhile, David and Victoria. Beckham continue to maintain careful silence. No emotional interviews, no public rebuttals, no dramatic statements. Their restraint may be intentional, an effort to preserve dignity, allow tensions to settle, or simply avoid escalating an already fragile situation. Yet the questions continue. Is this a pause before healing begins, or the stillness that follows a deeper break? Public speculation shows no signs of fading. Debates intensify, theories multiply. With each passing day, observers continue watching one of the world's most visible families navigate its most personal rupture. At the center of the conversation remains a haunting question. Is this the end of a painful chapter, or the beginning of a permanent distance? Because when a family built on unity begins to fracture in public, repair is rarely quick. The once flawless image, polished to near royal perfection, now appears chipped and human. And perhaps that is the most striking shift of all. The Beckhams were long viewed as a blueprint for fame, discipline, and legacy. Now their story serves as a reminder that behind couture gowns, magazine covers, and million-dollar smiles are people navigating complex emotions, expectations, and relationships, just like anyone else. No matter which side public opinion leans toward, one truth remains. This moment has changed how the world sees the Beckham name. What once symbolized unity and glamour now also reflects vulnerability and humanity. And perhaps that realization that even the most carefully curated lives can fracture under pressure is what keeps the world watching.